Some characters don't disappear when they're gone. They stay in your mind. They stay in every decision other characters make. And in Power Book 4, for Season 3. Diamond feels more present than ever, even in silence. This isn't just about remembering a man. This is about understanding why his story still hurts. Diamond was never loud. He never needed to be. From the moment he walked back into the world after prison, there was a calm around him that felt different from everyone else on the streets. He didn't rush to prove himself. He didn't talk too much. He observed, he listened, and that alone made him dangerous in a city built on ego and noise. Diamond carried himself like a man who had already paid the highest price and wasn't eager to pay it again. Prison didn't break him, it shaped him. It taught him patience, control, and silence. While others chased power fast, Diamond moved slow, believing that real strength came from discipline. That made him rare. In a world where chaos is rewarded, Diamond believed order could save him. He wanted structure. He wanted rules. He wanted to build something that didn't collapse every time emotions took over. But the streets don't respect calm men for long. They test them. And Diamond was constantly tested by people who mistook his restraint for weakness. What made Diamond special was not his ability to fight, but his ability to stop himself from fighting. He carried pain without showing it. He carried regret without begging for forgiveness. And deep down, he carried hope that he could live differently than before. That hope is what made his story so painful, because hope doesn't survive long in this world. Prison didn't just take years from Diamond's life. It took moments, choices, and chances he could never get back. When he came home, the world had moved on without him. Power had shifted, loyalties had changed, and the streets didn't wait for anyone. Diamond returned with a mindset shaped by survival, not dominance. Inside, every move had consequences. Every word mattered. That discipline stayed with him on the outside. But the outside didn't work the same way. People wanted quick reactions, fast violence, loud threats. Diamond didn't move like that anymore. He believed thinking before acting was strength. But that way of thinking made him look slow to people who lived on impulse. Prison also taught Diamond that respect comes from control, not fear. He tried to lead with that belief. But leadership in the streets demands blood. Diamond wanted loyalty without cruelty, order without chaos. And that dream slowly turned into a burden. The longer he stayed calm, the more pressure built around him. Old enemies watched him. New players doubted him. And even the people closest to him began to question his choices. Prison saved Diamond from becoming reckless, but it also separated him from the reality of the streets. That gap became dangerous because while Diamond was trying to build a better path, the streets were already planning his fall. Diamond rarely explained himself. He believed actions spoke louder than words. But silence can be misunderstood, especially by people who already feel insecure. Diamond carried guilt for the past and responsibility for the future. And he never learned how to share that weight. Instead, he kept it locked inside. Every time he chose restraint, he was fighting a war within himself. Part of him wanted peace. Another part knew peace wasn't allowed. Diamond watched people he cared about make reckless choices, and instead of stopping them forcefully, he hoped they would see reason. That hope slowly became his weakness. Silence created distance. Distance created doubt. And doubt turned into betrayal. Diamond wasn't cold. He was tired. Tired of violence. Tired of losing people. Tired of repeating the same cycle. But the world around him didn't want a tired man. It wanted a ruthless one. The more Diamond held back, the more pressure closed in. He became isolated, surrounded by noise but trapped in his own thoughts. His silence wasn't empty. It was full of fear, regret, and hope battling each other every day. And in that silence, his enemies found space to move. In Season 3. Diamond's absence feels heavy because his choices shaped everything that came. After, his discipline exposed the chaos around him. His calm highlighted the violence of others, and his downfall became a warning. Diamond represents the cost of trying to be better in a world that punishes growth. he wasn't. Perfect, he made. Mistakes, but his intentions were different. He wanted stability where others wanted control. He wanted loyalty where others demanded fear. Remembering Diamond isn't about praising him. It's about understanding the tragedy of a man who tried to escape the cycle and paid the price for it. His story forces us to ask hard questions. Can you survive the streets without becoming heartless? Can discipline protect you when chaos rules? Or is the world of power designed to destroy men like Diamond? Season 3 doesn't let us forget him because his shadow still influences every move. His life reminds us that sometimes the strongest men are the ones who choose not to strike, and those are often the first ones to fall. Prison didn't just take time from Diamond. It rewired the way he saw the world. When he came home, he wasn't chasing the same things anymore. The hunger for fast money, loud respect, and quick violence was gone. Inside, he learned that every second mattered and every mistake cost more than pride. That lesson stayed with him. Diamond came back moving careful, choosing patience over impulse. But the streets don't reward patience, they reward fear. And that was the first crack in his future. While Diamond was locked away, the world changed without him. Power shifted hands, rules bent. New players rose up with no memory of who he used to be. To them, Diamond wasn't a legend. He was just a man who had been gone too long. That hurt him more than he ever admitted. Not because he needed praise, but because it showed how fast respect fades when you disappear. Prison taught Diamond humility, but the streets demanded dominance. That clash slowly pulled him apart. Diamond believed that control meant survival. In prison, staying calm kept you alive. Outside, staying calm made people think you were weak. He tried to apply prison rules to street life, and that was a mistake he never fully corrected. He expected logic in a world driven by emotion. He expected loyalty from people who only followed power. Every time he chose not to strike, he lost ground. Every time he paused to think, someone else moved faster. The hardest part was that Diamond knew this. He felt it slipping away. He could sense respect fading from the eyes around him. But he didn't know how to become the man the streets wanted again without losing himself. Prison had taken the reckless version of Diamond and replaced it with a thoughtful one. And there was no place for thoughtful men in his world. He was caught between who he used to be and who he wanted to become. Prison also gave Diamond something dangerous: hope. Hope that he could do things differently. Hope that structure could replace chaos. Hope that leadership didn't need violence. But hope can be deadly when the environment doesn't allow it. The more Diamond tried to build order, the more disorder surrounded him. He underestimated how deeply the streets had rotted while he was gone. People close to him started questioning his judgment, not openly at first, but quietly. Looks changed. Conversations felt colder, trust cracked. Diamond noticed it, but instead of confronting it head-on, he stayed silent. He believed respect would return if he stayed consistent. That belief cost him time he didn't have. Prison taught him patience, but patience became his blind spot. Diamond wasn't weak after prison. He was disciplined, but discipline without fear is fragile in a violent world. He wanted to lead by example, but the streets demanded force, and every day he refused to cross that line again. The ground beneath him gave way. Prison saved Diamond's soul, but it left him unprepared for the new reality waiting outside. And that reality was already planning to crush him. Diamond didn't talk much, but that didn't mean he had nothing to say. It meant he had too much. Every choice he made carried weight. And instead of sharing that weight, he carried it alone. Silence became his shield. He believed that speaking less would keep things calm, that holding back words would stop problems before they started. But silence doesn't stop storms. It only makes them harder to see coming. Diamond was surrounded by people who spoke with anger, fear, and ego. He moved differently. He listened more than he spoke. And when he did speak, his words were measured. To him, that was wisdom. To others, it looked like distance. People began to wonder what he was thinking, what he was planning, and whether he truly cared. In a world where trust is built on loud promises and violent action, Diamond's quiet. Nature made him hard to read. And when people can't read you, they start to imagine the worst. Inside Diamond, there was a constant fight. One side of him wanted peace, structure, and order. The other side knew that peace was fragile and often temporary. He remembered the cost of violence, the blood, the loss, the years taken from him. That memory kept him from acting fast. But every time he chose restraint, the pressure grew. He watched situations spiral that he could have stopped early. He saw people make choices that would lead to disaster. And instead of stepping in with force, he waited, hoping things would settle on their own. That waiting created distance between Diamond and everyone around him. Distance turns into doubt, doubt turns into fear, and fear turns people against you. Diamond didn't realize how isolated he had become until it was too late. The people around him stopped seeing him as a leader and started seeing him as an obstacle. His silence gave others room to speak for him, to twist his intentions, to question his loyalty. And Diamond, still believing in patience, let it happen. He carried guilt quietly, guilt for the past, guilt for being gone, guilt for not fixing things fast enough. He believed that if he stayed calm and consistent, everything would eventually fall into place. But consistency doesn't protect you when the ground is shifting. Diamond underestimated how fast people lose faith when results don't come immediately. He thought respect could be rebuilt slowly. The streets demanded instant proof. Diamond's silence wasn't weakness, it was exhaustion. He was tired of repeating the same mistakes, tired of watching people destroy themselves, tired of violence being the only language anyone understood. But tired men don't survive long in his world. The more he tried to rise above the chaos, the more alone he became. Conversations stopped feeling honest. Loyalty felt forced. Trust felt thin. By the time Diamond realized his silence had become a prison of its own, the damage was done. People had already made up their minds. Plans were already in motion. And Diamond, still fighting his inner war, stood in the middle of it all, trying to stay true to himself while the world closed in. His silence didn't protect him, it exposed him. And in that quiet space, everything he worked to build began to fall apart. Diamond didn't fall because he was careless. He fell because he trusted the wrong things at the wrong time. He believed discipline could protect him. He believed patience would earn respect. And he believed loyalty still meant something in a world where survival mattered more than honor. Those beliefs slowly placed him in danger, even though he never saw himself as weak. The streets didn't defeat Diamond with force. They defeated him with timing. Every mistake Diamond made came from trying to hold things together instead of tearing them apart. He gave people chances when others would have pulled the trigger. He waited for clarity when others acted on suspicion. That hesitation created openings. People around him started moving without him. Decisions were made behind his back. Alliances shifted quietly. By the time Diamond noticed, he was already behind. In his world, being behind is fatal. Diamond underestimated how much fear drives people. Fear of losing power, fear of being replaced, fear of looking small. While he was focused on balance, others were focused on control. They saw Diamond's calm as a threat, not because he was violent, but because he wasn't. A man who doesn't react the way you expect makes people nervous. And nervous people strike first. What truly broke Diamond wasn't betrayal alone. It was realization. The moment he understood that his way of doing things no longer worked. That the streets had outgrown his rules. That the version of himself he fought so hard to become had no place here. That realization hit harder than any bullet because it meant prison hadn't prepared him for freedom. It had only delayed his punishment. Diamond tried to correct course, but it was too late. Trust was already gone. Respect had already faded. People no longer listened when he spoke. His words, once measured and calm, now sounded powerless. He had lost control of the narrative, and in the streets, once your story is told by others, your fate is sealed. There is something deeply tragic about watching a man realize his downfall while still standing. Diamond wasn't blind. He saw the danger coming. He felt the shift in energy, but he couldn't bring himself to become the man he used to be again. Violence could have saved him. Ruthlessness could have protected him, but choosing that path would have meant admitting prison changed nothing. And Diamond couldn't accept that. His fall wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was slow, heavy, and inevitable. A man trying to walk straight in a crooked world. When Diamond finally lost everything, it didn't feel like justice. It felt like waste. Waste of growth, waste of potential, waste of a man who tried to break a cycle that refuses to be broken. Diamond's downfall wasn't just his own failure. It was a warning. In this world, trying to be better doesn't always save you. Sometimes it makes you a target. And Diamond learned that lesson too late. Diamond didn't leave behind noise. He left behind a gap. After everything fell apart, his absence didn't feel empty. It felt heavy. The streets kept moving. Deals kept happening. And power kept changing hands. But something was missing. The balance Diamond tried to create was gone, and chaos rushed in to replace it. That's how his legacy lives on. Not through fear, but through the mess that followed once he was no longer there to slow things down. People rarely talk about Diamond directly, but they feel him in every bad decision. In every rushed move, in every act driven by anger instead of thought. He was the pause in a world that never stops. Without him, everything feels louder, faster, and more reckless. His absence exposes what he was holding back all along. The violence didn't start after he was gone. It was always there. Diamond was just the one keeping it from spilling over. What makes Diamond's legacy powerful is that he didn't rule through terror. He tried to rule through structure. That kind of leadership doesn't get respect immediately. It takes time. And time is something the streets never allow. Still, even after he's gone, people are forced to deal with the consequences of ignoring his way. Every broken alliance, every unnecessary death, every moment where things spiral out of control points back to what Diamond tried to prevent. Diamond also leaves behind questions that never get answered. What if he had acted sooner? What if he had been harder? What if he had trusted less and demanded more? These questions haunt everyone who crossed paths with him. His story becomes a mirror for others, forcing them to face their own choices. Some realize they helped push him out. Others realize they mistook his calm for weakness. And some realize, too late, that they needed him more than they knew. His legacy isn't clean. It's complicated. Diamond wasn't perfect, and he never claimed to be. But he tried to change the rules without destroying himself. That attempt alone makes his story different. In a world built on survival at any cost, Diamond tried to survive with his soul intact. That's rare, and rarity often comes with a price. Even in Season 3, Diamond's shadow still lingers. His name carries weight because people remember what happened when he was ignored. His choices, his patience, and even his mistakes continue to shape the path forward. Diamond becomes a symbol of lost balance, proof that once restraint is gone, there's nothing left to stop the fall. In the end, Diamond's legacy isn't about how he lost. It's about what the world became without him, and that might be the most powerful mark he could leave behind.